Hello guys, hopefully you guys are staying warm and enjoyed the snow yesterday. That was pretty fun. Just in case anyone has power and is looking for a video to help them on paper for today, I wanted to put something up there for you. I apologize for it being up later. We kind of have rolling power right here, so I wasn't really able to get it up in time, but so let's just look over a couple of these. Let's look at number 2 first. Okay, so for on all of these problems on the first page, that front page, you are wanting to put your equation in factored form, which most of these are, except number 6. Number 6 is in standard form, so you'd have to factor it to get factored form. But number 2 is already in factored form, all right? And it's easy to see that we have 2 different factors here. We talked about last week, if we have 2 different numbers, right? So let's say a times b, and they multiply to equal 0. That means one of our 2 values has to be 0, right? Because anything times 0 equals 0. So essentially either 2n or n minus 20 is equal to 0. So what we're going to do is just going to take one at a time and think, okay, if 2n is equal to 0, what does n have to be? Well, obviously n right here would have to be 0, so this is one of our solutions to this equation. And then we take the other factor, n minus 20, and we think, okay, well, if that one was equal to 0 now, what would n have to be? Well, what minus 20 gives us 0? Obviously n would have to be 20. And then you're done. All right, so if n was equal to 0, that means that whole equation would be equal to 0. So I can show you here, figure out how to erase this. Bear with me, takes a little bit of time. Okay. So we said either n is equal to 0 or n is equal to 20. We have 2 different possible solutions here. So let's walk through it. So if we plug 0 in for n, we'd have 2 times 0, and then 0 minus 20. Well, 2 times 0, that gives us 0, right? 0 minus 20, that gives us negative 20. 0 times negative 20 equals 0. All right, so we're showing that if we plug in 0 for n, our equation is equal to 0. Okay. All right, on the other hand, we could also plug in 20 for n. So we did 2 times 20, and then 20 minus 20. That should be equal to 0, right? Well, let's look at it. Okay, 2 times 20, that gives us 40. 20 minus 20, that gives us 0. 40 times 0 is obviously 0. So again, we've proved that if we plug in 20 for n or 0 for n, our equation is equal to 0. So we got 2 solutions here. So the question was, what value of n makes the equation true? Well, the value of n would have to be 0 or 20. So that is our answer right there. All right, let's look at a different one. So I'm not going to go through all these because I want you to work on some of them. Again, this paper is due for a grade. If you don't have internet, obviously you wouldn't be watching this video, but you would just turn that paper in to me because you wouldn't be able to turn it in online. All right, so number 4, what is the positive solution to the equation? Okay, notice it says what is the positive solution, right? So in your answer, you might get a negative one and a positive one, and you would put the positive one down. And there's probably going to be a question on your test like this, or a question in the STAR test like this, so don't get too confused by it. All right, so let's look at what we got here. It's already in factored form. We have 2 different factors. Okay, so let's take the first factor, 2u plus 7. 2u plus 7. Okay, if this is equal to 0, what would u have to be? This just becomes a two-step equation here. We're just solving for u to see what it would have to be for that whole thing to equal 0, right? So we go back to don't call me after midnight, DCMAM, there's nothing to distribute. All of our u's are moved to one side. We do have to add or subtract. We have to subtract 7 from both sides. That cancels that out. And we get 2u is equal to negative 7. And then the last step would be to divide by 2. That cancels that out. And then u is equal to negative 7 over 2. So that is one of our solutions. Now, look back up at the question. What is the positive solution to the equation? That is not positive, right? So obviously we're not going to use that one. We're going to go to the next factor and think, okay, well, what does u have to be here for 3u minus 1 to equal 0? Go through, solve for u, see what you get. We need to add 1 to both sides. That cancels out. We get 3u is equal to 1. Okay, we need to divide by 3. That cancels out, and we get u is equal to 1/3. So the positive solution is obviously going to be this guy right here. Okay, 1/3. There's other problems where you're going to have to factor, right? So like this in number 6, it's in standard form, it's not in factored form. So you're going to have to use your GPS. All right. There's no greatest common factor here between 3, 1, and negative 14. So we're going to say no greatest common factor. Our product, first times the last, negative 14 times 3x squared. That would be your product, and then your sum would be your middle term right here, 1x. Alright, so we have negative 14 times 3, that would give us negative 42. And then we have our x squared right there. Middle term is 1x. We want to think of two numbers that multiply to get negative 42 and add to get 1. Alright. So if we're thinking about the factors of 42, and we want our factors to be 1 away from each other because our sum is going to be 1, the bigger number is going to be positive, so let's use positive 7 and negative 6. So 7 times negative 6, that gives us negative 42, and then 7 plus negative 6, that gives us positive 1. That'll work. Alright, make a box over here. First term goes in the first box. Last term goes in the last box. Those values you found right here go in the diagonal. Don't forget to put your x there. Alright, greatest common factor coming up here between negative 6x and negative 14. Well, the biggest number you can divide both negative 6 and negative 14 by is 2. And that both of those are negative, so I'm going to put negative 2. And then the biggest number you can divide both 3x squared and 7x by would be x. That means you would have to put a 3x here and a 7 here. So our factored form is going to be 3x plus 7, x minus 2, and all that should be equal to 0 like we have right here. Alright, now you're not done yet, right? You just found the factored form because you need that in order to find what value of x makes each factor equal to 0, right? So this is kind of one of the problems where you might need extra space here to write some stuff down, get an extra piece of paper. All right, I'm going to erase all this stuff so we have more room. All right, so then from here, you're just going to go through like we did in all the other ones, okay? What value of x would make 3x plus 7 equal to 0? What value of x would make x minus 2 equal to 0? And then you're going to have two answers in the end. For number 8, yes, I know it looks a little different. It looks like it's almost in standard form, right? But to put this in standard form, we would need to subtract 16m from both sides. So on the right side, we would get 0, right? And on the left side, we'd have m squared minus 16m minus 36. Okay, now that's in standard form. So now we can factor it, all right, and then get our factored form and then figure out what value of m would make each factor equal to 0, okay? Let's see here. On the back side, same kind of dealio for both of these. 9 and 10 would be the same thing. Make sure all your terms are on one side. Doesn't matter which one's one side. Like for number 10, I would subtract 6s squared from both sides, so that this side is the left side is equal to 0. On number 9, I would subtract the 10r from both sides, so that the right side is equal to 0. Factor and find what value of your variable makes those factors equal to 0. All right, number 11, it says the area of a rectangle is 60 square feet. The length is 10 feet greater than the width. Okay. The situation can be represented by the equation right here, where W is the width of the rectangle. Find the width. Okay, so they're kind of giving you a bunch of information you don't need, right? You have the equation for W. That's the variable you want to find, right? So essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking this equation, you're going to be factoring it so that you can put it in factored form, right? Find your factors, put it in factored form, it's still going to equal 0 just like it does in the equation, and then see what value of W makes each factor equal to 0, just like you were doing on the front side, just a little extra work. Number 12, it says the area of a triangle is represented by the equation right here, where h is the height. Whoop. Right there. Find the height if the area is 15 square feet. Okay, so this equation right here is equal to the area. So 2h squared minus h is equal to the area. And our area is 15, right? So we know that 2h squared minus h is equal to 15. Okay. Just like this, we don't really know how to do it, right? But we've had similar problems like this on the front side, where all we have to do is subtract 15 from both sides. Boom. That makes this, the right side, equal to 0, right? So then we have 2h squared minus h minus 15 is equal to 0. Okay, now we can take that equation in standard form, we can factor it, and then we can see what value of h makes each factor equal to 0, just like we were doing on the front side, okay? And then the problems down below, review, right? So for number 13, you could either use the box method or the distributive property to multiply. And then for number 15, I'm going to give you a hint. Point, slope, form, right? Which was y minus y1 equals your slope times x minus x1. Remember, your slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so if we're looking at our 2 points right here, it doesn't matter which is the first and the last. This could be x1, y1. This could be x2, y2. All right. Hopefully that helps. Stay warm, guys.